Hello there, time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us are Shaban Ahern from Talk Sport and Sam Dean, the Telegraph football reporter. Welcome to you both. Let's have a look at the Back Pages first before we have a little chat. We'll start with the Telegraph. Foden's fireworks display is the headline in the Daily Telegraph after he scores twice in a 4-1 win over Dortmund. Elsewhere, the paper also carries an England rugby selection exclusive with Chandler Cunningham South set for a chance to stake his claim as number 8 against Fiji. You can already see it there, The Guardian. City's win is also front and centre of their back page. They also mention the other Champions League games. Headline, Garnacho spares Chelsea's blushes, and Burns sparks 2 victory over Bilbao. Good win that for Newcastle. Elsewhere, Gareth Southgate has revealed the England squad play traitors to bond at major tournaments. Fascinating insight that. Inside the Times, Sky Sports' Michael Atherton has his say on Australia's Ashes squad, which has been announced. The headline, England can exploit Australia's muddled thinking over openers. Yeah, so let's start with the Champions League football. And again, a pretty good showing from the Premier League teams in action. Manchester City, it felt like here, Shaban, with a real impressive statement win over a Dortmund side who have a lot of European experience. We saw on the back of the Telegraph, they're making fact of Foden's 2 goals on bonfire night with a fireworks display, they call it. This feels indicative of Phil Foden at the moment. He's back to form. City are motoring. This feels like a really important win for them.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a statement win tonight. Borussia Dortmund not at their best tonight, allowing a lot of space in a lot of places all over the park, and Phil Foden just lit it up. An absolute cracker of a performance for him tonight. Fair play to him. And as you mentioned there, Jess, he's just back to his best this season. This is what we know Phil Foden is capable of. That's his 20th goal in the Champions League for him tonight, and 5 goals now so far this season. He just looks the business. And when you give him that space, that first goal, he rolls that in. Absolutely stunning performance from Phil Foden and from that man Haaland as well. And then Ryan Cherky getting the 4th. It felt like it was a statement performance on Pep Guardiola's side in the Champions League.
It really did. And you mentioned Haaland because he is such a man in form at the moment, Sam. Another goal tonight against his former side as well. City need him, don't they, to ensure that their Champions League campaign stays on track and you know, their Premier League campaign stays on track as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We've all seen the stats from this season that Haaland has scored pretty much all of City's goals in the Premier League this year. He is absolutely the man in form, not just in English football, but probably in world football right now. And again, his finish tonight was, for him, quite a simple goal, but taken with such conviction and power. It was almost frightening. And it's reached the point now where the news story from a journalistic point of view will be when Haaland doesn't score. So we've almost run out of things to say about Haaland. So I think journalistically it was quite nice for all the guys there at the game tonight that Foden did dominate the game the way he did and scored those 2 goals. And obviously with Foden too, that raises the question about England as well, with obviously international break coming up. He's been out of the picture recently for England, but has he played his way back in? Was tonight's showing good enough to really convince Thomas Tuchel to unleash Foden again on the international stage?
Yeah, that squad announced on Friday, Shaban. I mean, how do you rate Phil Foden's chances? Because he's a man in form.
He absolutely has to be in there. And to be fair, in Thomas Tuchel's last camp, his last announcement, you looked at the players who were in form that weren't selected. Jack Grealish being one of them who missed out in the last international break despite being in great form. I mean, the one that we're all talking about at the moment is Danny Welbeck. Is he going to be selected this Friday, which you would think based on form he would be? Whether Thomas Tuchel goes down that road, I'm not entirely sure. But Phil Foden's stunning, and you just look at the goals all over the pitch. This is the City of a couple of years ago, isn't it? Contributions everywhere. But Ryan Cherky, I think that's it in the last 7 days. He's had something like 5 or 6 goal contributions. He had a goal and assist against Swansea. He had 2 goals against Bournemouth and then another goal against Dortmund tonight. So Pep Guardiola, again, doing what he does best and bringing out the best of these players that he's bringing in. I think Cherky was something like 35 million, and they're really getting their money's worth for him tonight. And of course, over the last week as well. well. And Erling Haaland, I mean, as Sam mentions there, we're running out of superlatives for this man, and his stats are just mental. I mean, 54 goals in 52 Champions League games. And tonight, humble as ever then, he doesn't even celebrate because it's against his former team. Outstanding, honestly. Take a bow, young man.
I wonder, though, we've seen City be impressive tonight, and yeah, they were up against top opposition, but there are three teams still with 100% records in the Champions League in Bayern and Arsenal, to name a couple of them. How well do you rate Man City's chances of competing with those top teams?
Well, with City, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because obviously they had a couple of defeats at the start of the season, and people were generally not quite sure whether they were back or whether it was still a bit of a hangover from last year and just how good they might be. The sense I've got from watching them in the last couple of weeks, and especially the last two games, is they look like they're having a lot of fun again. And I think that's something that, far be it from us to criticise Pep Guardiola, but one thing that is often levelled at him is that he sometimes sort of restricts his players. And I think Grealish, you mentioned Grealish, Shaban, is like a great example of that a player who sort of operates with such freedom when he's at his best, but never seemed to quite have that at City. But it feels like they're kind of moving towards a bit more freedom and a bit more fun. And you mentioned Ryan Cherki, and I think he's added that too, with that flair, sort of two-footedness and willingness to try things. And I think that's bringing the best out of Foden too. And I just think a lot of people in the Premier League are talking about Arsenal running away with it now and their defence being so impressive. But the more fun that City can have and the more those players they've got can express themselves, which is absolutely what they're doing, I think, currently, the more formidable City will be. And certainly that's absolutely not a bygone conclusion in the league. So, yeah, I think City are absolutely a force to be reckoned with again. And I think fun is a big part of it.
Yeah, they do look like they're enjoying themselves, playing with smiles on their faces. One team who's not smiling, I suppose you could say, after their Champions League performances, Chelsea, the two times European champions, held to a 2-2 draw against the so-called European minnows of this competition, Qarabag. How much does this feel like, perhaps, you can see it here in the Times, Chelsea humbled as Qarabag claim first point of an English side? Shaban, how much does this feel like Chelsea dropped the ball? They had the opportunity here to just put 3 points on the board and claw their way back up the table. Missed opportunity?
Yeah, perhaps maybe Enzo Maresca's underestimated Qarabag. He made 7 changes tonight. He said, actually, in his post-match interview that they did try to rotate tonight. They tried to get that right. Caicedo had to come on early due to another player being injured. They made a number of changes then at half-time. Alejandro Garnacho was key for them tonight in terms of coming off and rescuing a point and rescuing a point, which certainly helped. Again, you do wonder, Jess, and it's been mentioned a number of times, is there a lack of experience in that team?
It's a very young team, isn't it?
Yeah, is that something, maybe just something that's holding them back, or maybe they underestimated the side tonight? Maybe, again, it's a lot of football ahead of them. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it would have been seen as a little bit of an embarrassment for Chelsea had they come away with a loss, but I think rescuing a point, I think you'll take that at this stage of the competition. They're still sitting there in 12th, and it's such a big table, mind you. So I don't think he'll be massively... He'll be disappointed, but it's certainly not the end of the world. I don't think, anyway.
Yeah, Sam, 16 shots for Chelsea in this match, just the 4 on target. Do you think that might have been indicative of the fact that Enzo Maresca made 7 changes? Is there too much tinkering and tailoring with the squad?
Well, I think the concern for Chelsea and their supporters will be that Enzo Maresca clearly thinks that tinkering is necessary. And he spoke after the game about the Club World Cup and the impact that's having. And I think that's the first time he's really cited the Club World Cup as a relevant factor. And you mentioned, for example, Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo needing a rest because they're still recovering from last season. And obviously, none of us know, no one in football knows what the impact of the Club World Cup will be. All we know is that Chelsea played a lot more football for a lot longer than any other team. Yeah. They're having to manage that now. And I think trips to Baku are not going to help. It's a long old way. It's a trip I've done, I think, 3 or 4 times now as a journalist. And obviously, I'm not flying first class like the Chelsea boys are, but it takes it out of you. And I can see why it's hard work. And you have to make the changes. You have to use the squad. And if any club can handle rotation and depth issues, you'd think it would be Chelsea, given their investment. But I think right now the drop-off from their best players to their fringe players is quite a big one. And Shaban mentions the inexperience, and I think that's a part of it too, that they've gone to these games and it just feels like Chelsea are never far away from a a middling performance. They can play really well for 2 or 3 games, and then the next one will be really poor, and it will sort of set them back again.
Well, you'd feel like they have to find some form in this Champions League because they've got a tough run of games coming up in this competition. They play Barcelona, they're away at Napoli, they're away at Atalanta as well. As it stands, 7 points from 12. And looking at last season, Shaban, you needed about 16. That was enough for a top 8 finish. 11 points to reach the playoffs. Where does Chelsea's Champions League campaign stand at this point, do you think?
I mean, I suppose you can never underestimate any team in this competition. I mean, you've got to look at Barcelona tonight as well. I mean, they dropped points tonight. They'll be disappointed with that result. So I suppose it's what they make of it. I mean, on their day, Chelsea are excellent. They're a really, really brilliant side. Tonight's squad averaged, it's maybe one of the youngest ever in the Champions League at age 23. It's important, I think, to have Reece James part of the squad and to have him there and have him present. He's such a calm head. He's experienced. He's one of the leaders on the pitch. But in terms of getting everybody else up to a level, Garnacho, for example, as we mentioned earlier on, I think that's now 4 games in a row that he's played for Chelsea. He scores tonight. It's getting everybody up to speed. But I still think they're in it. I think it's far too early to say that Chelsea are going to struggle to get to the next phase of this competition. I think they're good enough, and it's whether now they can maintain the composure, avoid any more sending offs, which seems to be a bit of a problem for Enzo Maresca's side since the beginning of this season as well.
OK, well, Shaban said it. No panic yet, Chelsea fans. No panic yet. OK, Shaban, Sam, thank you for the moment. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be looking at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in the Times, as Rory McIlroy has his say on Live Golf's peculiar, as he called it, decision to move to 72-hole tournaments. Stay with us. Hello again, you're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to Shaban Ahern and Sam Dean. Let's just take a look at some of the other newspaper back pages which have just been published. And there's a common theme you might notice in a number of these papers, and it concerns Phil Foden after his 2 goals for City against Dortmund ahead of the latest England squad announcement. Blue touch paper is the headline in the Mirror. Odd for thought, says the Express. Touch of class. Foden's perfect time to shine for Thomas, says the Star. Meanwhile, Football Cuts Tributes for Global Events is the lead on the back of the Times as well. Yeah, so lots of focus there on Phil Foden ahead of Friday's England squad announcement. But another team in Champions League action was Newcastle. 2-0 winners against Athletic Club. Let's go to the back page of the Mirror. They focused on the fact that Dan Burn got himself on the score sheet. And this felt like another important win, Shaban, for this Newcastle team, who've had a bit of a topsy-turvy, shall we say, up and down start to the season, domestically and in Europe. Dan Burn doing press ahead of this game and very much so saying the focus will be on themselves and not on the opponent. And tonight, he really did show that leadership, that quality, that excitement and what it means to be a local lad playing for Newcastle, St James's Park, under the lights. I mean, he really steps up in huge moments, doesn't he, for that club? And that header tonight, Jess and Sam, was absolutely sensational. I've watched it 100 times. I mean, to curl in a header was pretty stunning. I mean, it was a beautiful goal. And again, he's been allowed that space. He runs off the man, but to curl in a header, it was really, really beautiful. And actually, Keith Downey from Sky, I saw a tweet that he put up how Dan Burn and Eddie Howe always kind of refer to Dan Burn's goal against Liverpool in the cup final being one of the best headers they've ever seen. Well, this one might actually rival it. So good in the air. I mean, it was absolutely magic and a big moment, I think, for him tonight. And it really got the momentum. They had a goal ruled off just ahead of that as well. And then Joe Linton made it 2. So a big performance again at St James's Park, but away from home where the struggles seem to be happening so far for Eddie Howe this season. 3 wins from 4 games in the Champions League for Newcastle now, Sam. Do you think they look good to qualify?
Yeah, I think they look pretty strong. I mean, don't ask me to try and work out the table. I'm glad you asked Shaban that earlier. For me, it's still totally beyond my comprehension at the moment. But just on that Dan Burn header, I think as well that the kind of aesthetic quality of it is really helped by the camera for the broadcast viewer being behind the header. And it was the same for his goal against Liverpool. You can really see the arc and the curl he gets on it, which is just remarkable. But yeah, fundamentally, Newcastle have been maddeningly inconsistent for most of this season. I think they only won one game away, yet they're so formidable at home. And you do have to sort of wonder why that might be. And is it a case of the players needing the St. James's crowd to kind of get them going, to motivate them, to fire them up? And if so, I think that's quite troubling. They should be able to do that whenever they need it, not just at home. And I'm sure Eddie Howe will be kind of, albeit very pleased tonight, but also somewhat frustrated because it came so soon after that abysmal performance against West Ham on Sunday. It's sort of how his team can swing from one to the other must be a real sort of perplexing thing for the manager right now.
Yeah, and we have to talk about, widen the scope a little bit and talk about all the English teams in the Champions League over the last couple of days, because it's been a good showing. 24 matches, 17 wins. It looks like the Premier League teams, the English teams, Shaban, really showing some dominance. How many do you expect to see in the knockout stages?
Nice, Jess. I like that stat there.
Thanks. I can't take credit for that, actually. Producer Tom, thank you very much.
Well done, Producer Tom. Take the rest of the night off. No, but I mean, excellent. They're doing well so far. I mean, what is it? Something like 4 games played now? Is it 4 or 5 games played in the Champions League? So they're still fairly early days in the competition. But what it means for these teams to be up near the top of the table, up in that top 8, top 16, to reduce the amount of games played is important to them. That's something we're hearing the manager speak about. Arteta's spoken about it. Now Glasner's speaking about it. The amount of fixtures that they've got, if they can cut out a game and a playoff down the line, that would be beneficial to these English clubs. Arsenal, I mean, they've got to be up there with favourites. But tonight, I mean, guys, I don't know about you. I think watching Manchester City, I don't know why I've not considered them really for the Champions League this season. The opponent in Dortmund wasn't excellent tonight, but I think you look at them playing like that, I think they take on any sides. I mean, Liverpool last night, again, a dominant win. Real Madrid were almost disappointing to watch last night. They were very underwhelming. So yeah, there is something about the English sides again this season, I would say. They've spent money, where Newcastle maybe are lacking this season is, of course, not having Alexander Isak. Maybe he is a big miss to them, even though I don't feel he's been the addition that Liverpool maybe expected to think that they were going to get when they signed him. But Newcastle have a good team. They have an excellent manager. They know what they're doing. It's still early in the league. They've only played 9 games in the Premier League this season, so it's still early days. You look at the fixtures they've got. They're away at Brentford this weekend, so it'll be good for them to turn that away form around. And then they're at home to Man City, then they're away to Marseille. So they've got a number of tough games ahead of them. It's just it's been able to turn that form around away from home, and nobody can pinpoint as to why it's not happening away from home for them. It's a confusing one.
It is. Let's just change sports then and talk golf, because Rory McIlroy has been speaking in recent days. His quotes have been carried in the Times. Rory McIlroy on Liv's switch to 72 holes. Of course, they used to play 3 rounds. They will be moving to 4-round events. They're not a destructor now, Rory McIlroy says. Some really interesting quotes for him. He says he thinks it's a peculiar move. He thinks that because he says, I don't think they could have got ranking points with 3 rounds. I think they could have got ranking points with 3 rounds, sorry. I don't think 3 rounds versus 4 rounds is what was holding them back. It brings them back to not really being a destructor and sort of is falling more in line with what everyone else does. What do you make of Liv's decision, Sam, and the fact that Rory McIlroy, again, speaking about the Liv Tour?
Yeah, I think we shouldn't sort of avoid the context that McIlroy's probably been the most vocal critic of Liv Golf throughout this process, and obviously that's informing some of his words now and his opinions. And I think the word peculiar, I think he uses that, it feels quite loaded. But yeah, I mean, the rankings issue is an interesting one, because the point that he makes is that he's not even sure how much that would actually help the Liv Golf players, because they've got very low rankings points, having not had them for a couple of years now. I think, for example, Dustin Johnson was the world number 1, and now he's ranked, I think, 600 odd or 605th in the world ranking. So the actual system itself, I think the point McIlroy is making is it won't make a huge difference. But I don't think McIlroy's a fan of the Liv Golf thing. Well, we know he's not. And I think he's seen a chance here to make another point. And he's taken it. And it's interesting. But it's been interesting seeing McIlroy speak just generally this week, and speaking as well about sports personality of the year, for example, saying he fancies going along this year for the first time in a while which, he's making the point to my colleague James Corrigan that if he doesn't win it now, he never will. I think people still remember it. Anyone who's sort of got interest in that kind of individual award will kind of still think back to 2014 when he didn't win it and Lewis Hamilton did, despite McIlroy winning back-to-back majors. So maybe that chip's still on his shoulder.
If I don't win now, I never will, says Rory McIlroy there in the Telegraph. Shaban, how do you rate his chances? It's going to be another stellar year of stellar athletes, but has he got a chance?
Oh, he has to. He absolutely has to win it. Last year was Mary Earp's. Difficult time for her personally at the moment. The year before that was Beth Mead. And I think Chloe Kelly is one of the favourites for this year. So you're looking at three lionesses in a row, which is absolutely incredible. I want to say Alessia Russo's up there as well. As is Ellie Caldun, of course, from the Red Roses. And that's the thing about Spotty, you know, it is a public vote. You know, when these sports people are up there, it is the public vote. And actually there's been a lot of backlash over the fact that there's been two lionesses winning it. But they have such a huge fan base, they're going to get the votes. But I mean, just remember that if you're watching now and sports personalities up, vote for Rory if you want him to win. Don't just expect him to win. It's a public vote. You have your say in this. I think he's got to. I mean, that win at the Masters, you know, nobody could look away. It was utterly iconic. And as Sam mentioned there, it was good to hear Rory speaking just in general terms this week. But when it comes to the live thing, I'm confused about changing it to 72 holes because live is Roman numerals for 54 holes. They're going to have to change the name of the thing as well. So what would it be? So 72 holes would be LXXII. It's not as catchy, is it?
It's not as pithy, is it? fair
You've
point.
lost me.
Fair point, Fair point, Shaban. Let's talk Ashes now, because we're just 2 weeks away from that first test in Perth, and the column inches in the newspapers are increasing. This is the point where, you know, you get the negativity from the Aussie media, the replies from the English media as well. Former England captain Atherton has had his say in the Times. England can exploit Australia's muddled thinking over openers. Do you feel like this Australia side, Sam, is in transition at the moment? Do you feel like England have an opportunity here?
Well, they've only got one player aged under 30 in their 15-man squad, so it's pretty settled, pretty experienced squad. I think they've got 806 caps and compared to England's 591. But yeah, Mike Atherton, and also in the Telegraph too, we focused on that kind of opening batsman partnership issue. And for example, Nick Holt, my colleague in the Telegraph, has written that Australia appear to have ignored Jofra Archer's potency against left-handed batsmen. If you'll let me get my stat up. Archer has taken 21 of his 51 test wickets against left-handers. Ooh. That's despite only bowling 30% of his deliveries at left-handers. So that's a real strength of his. And it looks like potentially Australia will be opening with two left-handed batsmen. So that's a potential plot line already forming nicely ahead of the first test. Brilliant.
Shaban, Sam, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you for your company on Back Pages tonight. Shaban Ahern and Sam Dean there. If you missed any of the show, as always, you can see it at 1:30. It's also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you get your podcasts. And you can join us again on Thursday night, where our guests will be Jonathan Liew from The Guardian and Sports Illustrated's Henry Winter.